My name is Olivier Picard, and I'm the owner of New Days Pharmacy, a group of 4 independent pharmacies in Berkshire. Back in December, I applied and was successful in opening a COVID vaccination centre in the town of Marlow, and this has been a pharmacy-led centre. The setup was done in the town of Marlow because initially there was lacking provision in the local area, and the population have been immensely thankful that we've opened, and hopefully you will hear through this series how it was set up, how successful it was, and what it means for everyone. So thank you for listening. Yeah, that's a great question. I have set up outside of the community pharmacy primarily because initially we were told that sites operating from community pharmacy would be able to deliver a minimum of 1,000 vaccination a week. Now, in a typical flu season, over a period of 3 or 4 months, we will probably do just shy of 1,000 vaccination, and therefore the idea of doing 1,000 each week would have meant that probably my entire operation would have halted to a stop. Sorry, and as a result, we looked at setting up from additional premises, and we were very fortunate because we approached local businesses, and one of them with workers working remotely were able to offer part of their premises for us to operate. And I must say, everybody that has come to the site to be vaccinated have been very impressed, not with the way the service is running, but also with the space that we have, much larger than community pharmacy, much easier to have social distancing, and allows us to have a lot more supporting staff as well, due to the fact that we have more space. I think, to be frank, if we had operated from the community pharmacy and involved the entire pharmacy team in that, I think it would have been difficult for us to deliver our usual pharmaceutical services, because we would have the vaccination would have been such distraction to the rest of the operation. The NHS has been hugely supportive in terms of once we opened and helping us with setting up IT and obtaining PPE and that sort of thing. However, for the rest, it was left entirely to myself and the pharmacy team to organize. I had to recruit someone to help me, an operation lead for the site, primarily because it was just too much for me to do, as well as running my usual business. I recorded some videos, put them online on the local Facebook group, saying that we needed volunteers, and we have been blessed with an overwhelming response from the local community. We decided to set up an app, or to use an app that's available on the App Store. We purchased a license to an app to manage volunteers, and we had to do everything from recruiting the volunteers to screening the volunteers to train the volunteers, and that is just for GDPR, as well as first aid and basic life support, anaphylaxis training. We had to train them on the platform that we use, the Pinnacle, and the booking system that is used for patients to book themselves into our clinic. So actually, NHS England provided a lot of support via Zoom, and offered some group discussions with other community pharmacists setting up in exactly the same way. But we were left on our own to set this up, and basically did what we thought would be right in order to do this. Now, the great thing is that we're used to doing flu jabs. We know how the service run. It wasn't a very difficult process to come up with the idea of how it would run. The execution, however, was very, very labor intensive, and we even recruited some what we call super volunteers in order to help us, because we initially needed a team of about 6 people, almost working full time for 2 or 3 weeks, just to get over the line and get the show on the road. And that has been perhaps the biggest, or would be the biggest obstacle to anyone thinking of doing this. But it's doable and it's highly rewarding. We don't regret a moment having done it. But at the time, working over Christmas and New Year was not the best feeling, and the hours that I had to go in were quite brutal, as well as the time scale to get all this done in time. Yes, so I'll start with the latter part of your question. We're being paid a fee per vaccination, and that is the only income that we will receive in order to pay for anything that we have to pay out. What I have had to do before setting up is pay mostly people to get to a point where we were able to be close to opening. We've had to pay for the license to use an app in order to manage our volunteers and our working schedule. On a typical day, we have probably about 40 to 50 volunteers working, and about between, say, 4 and 8 vaccinators working in divided shifts over the 12-hour period of the day. That would be too much to manage with a spreadsheet, and therefore we decided to use an app. So we had to pay some upfront costs towards that, and we also obviously had to pay some people to administer the whole process. I've recruited an operations manager at quite a high cost, and all this has been funded by myself initially, as well as any cost associated with training of volunteers and vaccinators, and finally any cost associated with the premises that we are occupying. Whilst we understand that the NHS will help further down the line, we've yet to see anything on that. So currently, the premises cost are also a huge cost, and part of me, and I know it sounds very cliche, but we're not doing it for the money. We don't want to lose money, but we're not doing it for the money. And when we offer the service, it is so rewarding, and people are so thankful and grateful that we're doing this at all, that actually it almost it almost put everything else in perspective. It is not a hard sell. People want what we're doing, and we're just hoping that if we don't churn a huge profit, we will hopefully not lose money either. But the NHS have said from the outset that people participating in a vaccination campaign will not lose out money. Part of me, the cynic in me, probably think that we've had similar conversation of a PPE and yet to see a penny of that. But being on the more positive side, I think the NHS is really continuing to promise that they will look after us, and I do believe that they will do so when the time comes. I think whilst they're rolling out further sites, it's very difficult for them to focus on every part of the service, and the main part was to vaccinate people. We're doing that now. But obviously there is a payment that's going to come, according to the number of people we vaccinate. And I think from my sums, I'm certainly a believer that the money that we will earn over the coming months will allow us to recuperate the ongoing investment that we're making in delivering the service. We put messages on local Facebook page to say, a simple message: volunteering saves lives. We're looking to set up a service for COVID-19 vaccination. We need volunteers. We used an app to recruit these volunteers, and in a matter of 36 hours of a new year, we had over 600 applications. We had to close the portal because so many people wanted to help. So on that front, we were hugely blessed by the community coming together, complete strangers coming together in order to help deliver this service. The same was done for vaccinators, where we put messages for vaccinators only, and we put that on LinkedIn as well as Facebook again. And we were approached by a number of volunteers. And I have to say, I've always worked with community pharmacy primarily. In my vaccination center in Marlow, we are working with paramedics, midwives, physiotherapists, nurses, GPs, cardiologists, plastic surgeons, and of course, many pharmacists. And I have never worked in a multidisciplinary team like this. And being able to work with other healthcare professionals is hugely rewarding. And all this was done initially by putting messages out to say, we are doing this, we need your support. And many people have come forward. And even now, I still get messages almost on a daily basis saying, I'd like to volunteer. How can I sign up? Because they realize that when we share the positive stories of what we're doing and the number of people we're vaccinating, and then we try and share the positive stories through social media, people want to be part of it, and it's inevitable. People want to help deliver this vaccination campaign. I haven't actually used any of my staff yet for the vaccination centre. I want my pharmacists to take part, but my pharmacists are employed to deliver pharmaceutical services from their pharmacies. And pulling out the staff from there would only deprive an already quite stretched workforce within the pharmacy. I mean, I'm sure it will resonate in many community pharmacists sort of, share my feeling that actually the remuneration of pharmacy doesn't allow to get too many staff in pharmacy. Otherwise, the viability of pharmacies are affected. So as a result, it made more sense for us to try and not use the pharmacy team. What this meant was that we had to provide a lot more training, and certainly we put a lot of GDPR training in place because a lot of the volunteers are not GDPR trained, and that was a big exercise. And 2 weeks prior to launching the service, we ran about 12 session on Zoom explaining to people what GDPR was, and then on top of that we ran other training courses on first aid, basic life support, anaphylaxis and injection technique, and that was used with a local provider where we're based. However, I felt the alternative, which was to take staff from the pharmacies, would have meant that the pharmacies would probably have struggled, and therefore for me was not the best option. So we decided to do the former, which was recruit volunteers, train them, and have a complete separate workforce to operate at the site. We get, surprisingly, we started by having a bit of resistance from other providers. The fact that we were opening, people were saying that we would struggle to get appointment. I'm pleased to report that so far, every time we have open appointment, we've always been 100% full. If we open 100 appointments in a day, we get 100 people booking in. We've offered as much as 400 in a day, and all 400 gets filled. And I think there is still quite a lot of interest in getting the vaccination where we are. And whilst the local PCN site and other sites are also providing a service, we've located ourselves within a town where people can access with good parking, disabled parking. And I think the word's gone around that the service we're offering is gold standard. And as a result, people don't hesitate to book with us. So so far, we have really received a lot of very full days. Now, to answer the second part of your question about the no-shows, unfortunately, we suffered a lot of no-shows initially, and I think it's going down at the moment. And the main reason for this is when we initially opened our booking on the booking system for people to book with us, we opened with about 2.5 weeks before we launched, and that's the normal procedure. What happened in that time is because these people were primarily elderly patients in their 80s and over, because at the time we were only vaccinated group 1 and 2. So most of them were in group 2. And between the time they'd received the letter from the NHS booked with us, the local surgery had contacted them as well. And I think there was a bit of misunderstanding where patients thought that by going with their GP, it would cancel the appointment they had with us, when actually the two systems are completely different. And therefore, we ended up having quite a lot of no-shows, anywhere between 10 and 20%. And it was really heartbreaking to see, because, you know, we try and staff accordingly to receive, you know, X amount of patients. And if only 80% of those turn up because 20% are no-shows, then it really is disheartening. So I made a plea on the local Facebook page to say, look, if you have an appointment, wherever it is, just don't change it, because it will create no-shows. And that generated the interest of the BBC locally, and we were on BBC London. And I think that exposure helped to reduce that. We're still seeing some no-shows today, but it's in the single figure, maybe between 6 and 8%. And that's still quite disheartening, because I can well believe that some people may forget, you know, but because we are only booking within a week of an appointment, I think people have understood that they can wait 4 or 5 days for their appointment without trying to get somewhere else early. And therefore the no-shows have dropped significantly. And also we're going down the age group where people are maybe a bit more tech savvy. They understand how a booking system works, and they are able to say to another provider approaching them that actually they've already got an appointment. So yes, the no-shows have not led to any doses of vaccine being wasted, because we have only used so far the AstraZeneca vaccine, and as long as it stays in the fridge, it is good until the expiry date, which generally is several months away. So we have not wasted any doses, but we wasted time. So if you think about 20% of no shows, which we had for the first almost the first couple of weeks, that potentially those appointments are released further down the line, and if everybody has 20% of no shows, then it will delay the vaccination campaign by 20%. So if, instead of taking 4 months to vaccinate everyone, it'll take 5 months. And that's the bitter pill to swallow, in my opinion. Luckily, we have not wasted any doses, just a bit of time. I think starting the week or two before Christmas was perhaps the most brutal of all elements in setting up this service, because we had to be ready by the 4th of January initially, and therefore we worked frantically through the entire Christmas and New Year holiday. Now, of course, there was not a great deal else to do, but still, family is important, and a lot of that time was sacrificed instead of spending it with a family. Would I change anything else? I don't think so. I think this has been the most rewarding thing I have done in my entire career, and I have done a lot of things for patients. Never have I done anything that means so much to so many people at the same time. The praise that we get today on a daily basis, several times a day, whether it is from volunteers, whether it is from vaccinators, but mostly it is from patients. It's truly heartwarming, and it made every effort worthwhile. Would I change anything? Probably not. The use of volunteer is really the best way. There are many people out there who want to help. Now, will it continue for weeks and months? We'll find out. We were worried about having 100 volunteers. We might struggle. We had over 600 register with us, some of them not suitable, but we still have about between 400 and 500 volunteers that are able to help and willing to help. So in that respect, no. Perhaps a bit of advice that I would give to anyone is don't try and do it yourself. I think recruiting an operations manager, someone that will help put the whole process in place, is very important. I don't think I would have been able to sleep for weeks, and probably still wouldn't have been ready if I tried to do it myself. So in that respect, I think it was hugely important to have the support. So yeah, I mean, as I say, I don't regret any of it. I didn't want to do it initially. I thought, oh my goodness, what have I let myself in for? but actually in hindsight, it is genuinely the best thing I have ever done, and wouldn't change it for the world now. Yeah, the best part is what it means for patients. The fact that so many people tell us that they are thankful and relieved, and we provide them with hope that normality can return. And I have to say, whether it's the patient, their families, it has been incredible. We've had people baking cakes for us after coming for their vaccination. We've had people ask local shops to bring us pizzas, burgers, fruit, veg, chocolate, whatever you can think about. It's happened, and that's all people wanting to say thank you for the effort that have been done. In my local town, I'm often walking around the town with the family, and people stop me and ask me how the vaccination centre is doing, because they know that what we're doing is so important for the local area. So, I mean, more rewarded than this, you couldn't. And as I keep saying to people, we're not doing it for the money. We're not doing it to be recognized as heroes. We're doing it because we feel it's the right thing to do. But my goodness, are people thankful? It's just incredible. And also, we've been supported by local businesses, and of course our volunteers. They've been amazing. The volunteers, they are smiling. We've had rain, we've had snow, we've had wind. It's been January and February, the worst 2 months of the year, and yet our volunteers have been smiling constantly, and that smile is infectious, and obviously has infected our patients and vaccinators. Everybody's working towards a common goal, and it really is heartwarming. There's nothing like it. I've never done anything like it, probably never will do anything like it again. It is truly an amazing feeling. So anyone that want or can do it, I would advise you to do it. However, be warned, it is a lot of work, and if we do 1,000 vaccination a week, which is what we've been asked to do by the NHS, think of how many flu vaccination you do in a season, and think of how you could times that by 15, 20, 25 over the same number of weeks. I think it's a tall ask. It is not an easy task, but it's very rewarding.